I'm Mark Hughes with Disability Viewpoints. With me today is Jim Bergen. You can tell by his fez, he's a Osmond Shriner and former potentate. Jim, what year were you potentate?
I was potentate in 2009.
That was a great year. I think that's about the year I joined. And what made you want to become a Shriner and a potentate?
Well, I grew up in a Shrine family. My grandfather was a Shriner, my father was a Shriner, my older brother's a Shriner, and it was something I'd looked forward to since I was a little kid.
Great, great. So back then you had to do a lot more degrees than the one they did masonry now. It took a little longer to become a Shriner.
It took a little longer to become a Shriner, which to become a Shriner you first need to be a Mason. Mm-hmm. And there are 3 degrees in Masonry, and as you mentioned to me, you did it in the 1 day to Masonry class, which is just fine. But otherwise, it's 3 different occasions to become a Mason, and then 1 day to become a Shriner.
Great, great. So you got on the divan, you worked your way up for 12 years and became potentate. What was the most outstanding thing about that? And what do you think you would have done different?
Well, I don't think I would have done anything differently. But I can tell you the most exciting and fun part was getting to know the 1,000 members of Osmond Shrine. Osmond Shrine yields from Alexandria to the Iowa border and east of the Mississippi. So all the different areas in St. Cloud and Alexandria, Hudson, Rochester, and all areas in between. Mankato, Albert Lee. I had the opportunity to travel our region and meet all the wonderful Shriners and their families and significant others, because the Shrine is a big family.
Right.
It's not.
It is.
It's a men's organization, but is nothing without the women backing us up.
Yeah, all the ladies help us out. So tell us how it's intertwined. How does Osmond Shrine help out the Shriners Clinic or any of its hospitals?
Okay, so just to clarify, the Shrine Circus is a fundraiser for the fraternity side, and the Shriners themselves is a fraternity with activities, and you might see us in some parades throughout the year or holding different events. The clinic is in existence. It's the philanthropy, we call it the world's greatest philanthropy. It's the philanthropy of the Shriners. So we choreograph all of that, we fund all of that, along with, of course, donations from the general public and corporations and so forth.
And then we have the Parade to Glory, and
yes,
at the end of the year, and everybody turns in their money. And
all year long, the different units, the motorcycles, the clowns, the calliope, and all the different marching units and so forth, everybody throughout the year is raising funds, and at the end of the year has usually a nice contribution to make you referred to the Parade of Glory.
Yeah, bet. So when you were becoming potentate, working your way up the line, you're goal-oriented, obviously. What was the goal you had in mind for your year coming up, and how did you plan?
The 2 things. It was known as the year that there was no meal served without dessert. That maybe seem minor to you, but it's important to everybody else.
Well, I'm a little backwards once in a while. I'll eat dessert first.
Yeah. But really just participation, because an organization isn't anything if the people aren't participating. It's fine to be a card-carrying member, but you don't derive any benefit out of it.
You got to be there, and I found out as I got more into it, I'm there more often than I'm not, and I try to be that way. And I want to be that way because the Shrine has done a lot for me, both physically, mentally. And I always tell people, when you're in the hospital like that there, and back then, we stayed there. And that's where little boys become pretty good men. And the alumni that I know today and still stay in touch with are pretty good men. Have done pretty well. Not necessarily me, but the alumni that there are. And the Shrine shaped us. And I think it does that for Shriners too. It's kind of like going through Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, then all of a sudden you're an Eagle Scout, but it's more than that. And so what is your fondest memory that you'll take away from being a Shriner or your Shrine year?
I think there are several of them. It was a very proud moment and a huge honor to be elected potentate the night I was elected. And reflecting back the night I left and there was a new potentate elected, and that night of reflecting back and having memories with everybody, one of the nice fun things is of course we have our imperial session where the shrines from all over the globe come together for meetings, and having that camaraderie wherever I go. I've traveled in different places, and in different times I've been greeted because I was wearing a shrine jacket or a hat that had the emblem on it, and I was greeted by a complete stranger welcoming me to their community.
And there are a lot of courtesies to be a Shriner. People respect that, and you're treated well. Again, the 101st anniversary of the Shrine Circus is coming up. The Osmond Shrine Circus will be here in March of 2025. Call and get tickets at 651-452-5662 at the Rose Warner Coliseum in St. Paul, and we'll see you there. Thanks for being with us, and we'll be right back.